Hey guys, this is David Thane. This is my Feral Druid guide for people that are brand new to this class and primarily spec Feral Druid, and also for people that are more experienced. I will have two sections where I'll have a beginner guide and a more experienced guide. I'll be focusing most on the talent and rotation in this, and go pretty fast over the covenant and the stats, because I think that the most important thing as a field route is knowing and understanding what talent to pick and what rotation to go with. There can be a big difference. You can have two field routes with completely the same stats and have a huge damage output differences because of the rotation and the spec. So I will go into this and also help people that are maybe a little afraid to play the field druid because I think it's difficult, to help them sort out how to play the class properly. I will agree that it can be overwhelming to play this class, and it can also be pretty confusing compared to other classes. I will say it can be difficult, but there's also a very easy way to build your spec on for beginners that just needs to learn how it is to play Field Druid. So I will go over that. So without further ado, I just think we will go into this. So let's go. Yes, so the two first topics is stats and covenant. So stats is pretty straightforward. The most important stat is of course agility, which you have here. It's just increasing your damage and will be always better than your secondary stats, which is down here. When we go to the second time stats, the best thing is crit, and mastery comes after that. Those are the two most important secondary stats you want to go with, and you should try to put your gear in most of these stats. When you craft the legendary, I always go crit and mastery, but there is also a cap kind of on how much it is worth to go crit and mastery, and it can be pretty difficult with these new changes where you get diminishing returns. So what I always do is just have the add-on called simulation craft. I just copy this link here and I go into raid bots that can help me finding out what my stat weight is. I have done that, and I can kick my gear here if there's something different here I need to check for. If we just take this out here, my weapon here, I can see here, oh, I need to put something else on here. I will just take this one. Yes, I can go here and see I have different here, but my red buds stat weight is what I'm following here. We'll say I have 163% upgrade, and of course I have that because this is a healer weapon I have here. But it's pretty nice to know because it helps you figure out what gear is better than others. And I will say that it is important that you, when you have got a lot of new gear, that you go and make a new stat weight at raidbot just to check if your stat weight have changed, because it will depends on how much of the percentages of the stat weight you have. But what I kind of want to focus on is getting kind of 30% crit, because when we get up there, the diminishing returns begins to hit in, which means that my overall crit I get from gear will be less in percentages. So when I get up at that, I will focus a little on haste, and not getting too much haste because it doesn't help to have too much of this. But what is pretty much the easiest is just go on raid bots, have a simulation craft, and figure out what kind of stats is the best for you. So that was kind of it. Covenants, I kind of just have one pick for the Feral Druid. I won't really discuss too much about it. They're pretty easy to figure out which one is best. There's one that is better than all of them, and that is Night Fae. You can see I'm a Night Fae here, and that's primarily because of the damage from the Convert the Spirit. It's insane. It's better than all the other covenants. And if you want to do the most damage as a feral druid, you need to pick Night Fae. That's just it. If you're thinking about picking Kyrian, well, I guess you can do that, but your damage will not be that high. The ability you get from the Kyrian is a 50% increased damage, and when you use your Convoke the Spirit, you use 16 different spells that is varying your core abilities in that shapeshift form you are in, which means that when I'm in cat form, my Ferocious Bite, my Shred, my Tiger's Fury, my Rake, and my Thrash will be main for hitting with the Convoke the Spirit. And when Tiger Fury hits, when you use Convoke Spirit, you get 50% increased damage. So it kinda completely destroys the Kyrian ability, which is not as good as the Convoke the Spirit. So I would take Night Fae, just so it may be nerfed, and if it's getting nerfed, we need to figure out if Night Fae still is the best one, but I'm pretty sure we're going with Night Fae maybe over the whole expansion. Let's see about it. Everything can happen, right? So for the Covenants, choose Night Fae. Okay, so let's go to the spec of the Feral Druid. And the first one is the beginner spec and guide. So let's just go into that. If you don't care about this beginner guide, you just want to go straight off into the experience guide, go do that. So here we go with the beginner guide. So let's put up the spec here, and just as people need to know before we go deeper into talking about these talents, this is not the ideal spec for doing the most damage. You're not gonna do the best damage if you're doing this spec, but if you are new to this Feral Druid class, I would recommend you going with this, because though Blood Tailor may be the best talent choice over Moment of Clarity, if you don't know how to use it correctly, you end up doing less damage, because you need to be very good at proccing it, doing the 30% extra damage on your Ferocious Bite and Rips, and if you can't handle it, do not pick it and keep with Moment of Clarity, because it is easier, way easier. When you pick this talent, it doesn't feel that scary to play Feral Druid, and it's very nice. It actually feels much better to have the Moment of Clarity. It feels more powerful, though Blood Tailor gives the most damage. So okay, so compared to the more experienced guide and the beginner guide, it's kind of all the way down here is the same build. It's actually only here in the end that you change and make the spec way different, more difficult. So it's actually pretty easy. We don't have a lot of different kind of flavors you can pick in this talent. Is pretty much set on this. And now we are talking about single target damage. If we are going into AoE damage, we will talk about after, you need to pick some else from this talent tree. But for patchwork, single target damage, we're keeping with this. So let's talk about it. First of all, we have Sabertooth. Sabertooth is the go-to pick here for single target. You don't want to pick any one of the other ones. Lunar Inspiration does not really work when we are talking about raid environment. But Sabertooth does Ferocious Bite damage to deal 20% more increased damage, and it increases the duration of your rips target by 1% per combo point spent. It may not feel that great, but it's actually very powerful. Before in BFA we had way better duration for the rips, but it kind of got nerfed, and I think it's okay, because back in BFA you almost could just use rip one time and keep it going for the rest of the fight. And here we need to apply it more and more and more, so I actually like that. I think it's more fun. It also does it do it more difficult, but it's okay for me. So and still you're going to use a lot of ferocious bite, and you're getting a lot of duration increased with your rips, so it's very, very powerful. Going down here to the next one, a lot of people will say that these three, it doesn't really matter how much or how you pick those, because they don't do a significant increase on your damage. And I agree, no, I disagree here. I do think there is a damage increase of picking different of these talent in this tree. And the reason is that the faster you can get to your target, the more damage you're going to do, and the more you can start using your energy and get your energy regeneration going. So if you're playing with renewal, you won't be able to get fast into your opponent, and you will get lower damage output. What I go with is, I really don't care if you use wild charge or tiger dash. For me, there's two that gives you increased speed, so you can get fast into your targets. Some people prefer tiger dash, some people prefer wild charge. I kind of like wild charge, that's what I'm normally going with, but there is some boss fights where I would say tiger dash is better, especially when we're looking at Castle Nathria. I think with Artificer, I think tiger dash is better. When you get targeted and need to place portal, I think it's actually very nice to have this 200% increased speed to go to the other side of the room to place your portal. So I think target dash in some circumstances is better, but overall I do think that the wild charge is the best pick here. What it does in cat form is that it leaps behind an enemy, dazing them for 3 seconds, which means they could stand away from the boss, and then you can just leap onto them and do a lot of fast damage to them. Especially in Sire, the last boss in Castle Nathria, when he lifts you up and throw you back, using wild charge to get right back at him is one of the fastest way to just continue doing damage. You get a lot more damage in when you're using wild charge at Sire. So there is a difference in damage of what you pick here. So I would pick wild charge. Going down here, there's also a significant damage increase in which you pick here. Those two doesn't do anything for increasing your damage, and the balance infinity helps you with your damage in two ways. You get some range damage increase from your the balance infinity, which will help you a lot, because it's actually very important when we get more experienced into playing Feral Druid. If you are new to the spec, don't think too much about the Moon King form and the abilities you get here. The most important thing for you is that it increases the range of all your abilities by 3 yards. You may think that 3 yards is not that important, but it's actually very important. When you are in melee, it's a big change that you get a 3 yards radius of your abilities. There are so many circumstances where the tank is moving the boss and you get out of range, and when you have this infinity, a lot of the times you will still do damage though the boss is a little away from you. Also, sometimes if a pool drops right next to a boss, you can stand at range and actually still do damage without standing in the pools. So it will give you a damage increase with picking this talent. And because when we're going into the rotation, I will, the weird thing about the Feral Druid rotation is that we actually use Moon King form and use some of the Moon King form abilities. That's why we I focus on a lot of the abilities we get here, and also because I'm picking Heart of the Wild. Heart of the Wild increases my damage of my balance abilities, and I pick this because I'm going to use my Moon King form and doing range damage in my rotation. If you're new to this, don't think about doing this. You can pick Mighty Bash, it's fine. It can help you with certain bosses where you need to taunt something. So I would maybe pick Mighty Bash at the beginning, but I will have to put it here because it is the ideal thing to do the most damage. But if you're a beginner, don't think about it. Just learn the core rotation of the Feral Druid and add to your rotation when you get more experience, because it can be pretty overwhelming to put the Moon King form abilities into rotation if you're completely new to this. So going more down here, we have Soul of the Forest. And that is pretty much the clear cut. You're picking this all the ways. Savage Raw, you have so many abilities already you need to pull off that there's not really a lot of space of using this. You get more energy from Soul of the Forest compared to Savage Roar, and you kind of really want to use your 5 combo points more on Ferocious Bite rather than Savage Roar, because Ferocious Bite is in pretty much insane. And what it also does when we look at Mastery, what Mastery does for us is that it increases the damage done by your cat form bleed abilities and finish moves. So Ferocious Bite also get an increased damage effect from your mastery, which Savage Roar do not do. So we rather want to use Ferocious Bite rather than Savage Roar. So Solar Force is always the pick here. When you use your finish moves, you get 5 energy per combo point. It's a lot, and you do also more damage increase. So that's a very good talent to pick, and it's passive, so it's easier to handle and so on. The next here, I think this is the most annoying talent choices you have in the Feral Druid. I hope they change it, because it's completely focused on an AoE here. The only thing that buffs your single target damage is your Brutal Slash. The other one is focused on AoE damage. If you're going in a Mythic Plus scenario, you maybe, if you don't have Tyrannical, you maybe want to go Scent of Blood or Primal Wrath. I would always go Primal Wrath, but it kind of depends if you have the right legendary, or if you depends on how fast your ads is going to die. Because if they die very fast and you don't get the effect of your rips, Scent of Blood may be the choice. But let's focus a single target here, and that is always Brutal Slash. Brutal Slash. It's the only thing that benefits single target damage. What it does is replaces your swipe and give you 3 charges of Brutal Slash, which is way better than your shred in damage. So always pick Brutal Slash. And here I said that Moment of Clarity is not the best choice as doing the most damage, but it is way easier to handle than Blood Tailor. What Omen of Clarity does is that now it triggers 50% more often. What is Moment of Clarity? Moment of Clarity is a passive you have here, which your auto attacks have a chance to cause a clear cast stat, making your next Shred, Thrash, or Brutal Slash cost no energy. That is very good. That is the thing that help us keeping a little more of our energy, because we don't have the greatest energy regenerations compared to a rogue. I think they have way better energy regeneration than us. So with the clear cast state is very important to us. And yeah, so it's very good. And what Moment of Clarity does is that it triggers 50% more often, and you can now get 2 charges of your clear cast, which is very good. It's so good. You can hold on your energy and wait for using your abilities because of the 2 stacks here. And it also increases your damage of your next Shred, Thrash, or Brutal Slash by 50%, and also increases your maximum energy by 30. So that's pretty okay. It's actually good. But if we're looking at Blood Tailor, when you use 3 different combo point generating abilities within 4 seconds, the damage of your next 2 rips or Ferocious Bite is increased by 30%. So it can be kind of difficult to pull it off like really good in your rotation. You need to play 3 different combo point generating abilities within 4 seconds, and if you don't have the energy to play the combo points and 4 seconds is going, you need to start over on playing 3 different combo point generating abilities. So it's difficult, it does more damage, but Moment of Clarity is just a good talent choice when you are new to this game, to this Feral Druid spec. So pick that in the beginning. It's way easier for you to handle. That is kind of the build. I'll just go fast over the AoE rotation. The picks for AoE, I won't go too deep into it. You're pretty much gonna keep the same, but you're gonna change. If you're playing heroic, play Scent of Blood, because your ads the mobs is just gonna die too fast, so you won't get the necessary value from your Primal Wrath. But if you're playing Mythic High Keys, I will go into a Primal Wrath here, and I will probably go into a Predator here, which the cooldown on Tyrant's Fury resets when a target dies with one of your bleed effects active. So remember to have used your Tiger Fury, and then it resets and you could use it again. It's a very good energy regeneration and give you 50% increased damage. So when you keep AoEing down mobs and you keep killing them because you have your bleed phase up on them, you just get so many Tiger Fury's applications, which is very, very powerful. You can actually do a lot of AoE when you have this talent choice. It's just pretty much that. But let's go back here to the Blue Slash. So that was the spec. Let's go into the rotation. Okay, so we are here now into the rotation of this beginner guide spec. So I'll just go fast over the abilities we're using and then tell you which kind of rotation we're going to use. Okay, so the first here we have here is Threat. Threat it causes 979 physical damage on the target, and it deals 20% increased damage against bleeding targets. While Stealthed, Threat deals 60% increased damage, has double the chance to critical strike, and generate 1 additional combo point. So there was a lot here, but the Threat is one of the lowest damage output abilities we actually have when we just push it one time. Brutal Slash is way better. You can say strike up to 5 nearby enemies with a massive slash, inflicting 1468 physical damage and award 1 combo point. It have a 7.6 second recharge, and it have 3 charges in all. So Brutal Slash, if we have 3 charges, we will always use it first, and we will go more in depth in how we're gonna use Brutal Slash and Threat later. We have a Thrash here, strikes all nearby enemies, dealing 165.6 bleeding damage and additional 565 bleed damage over 15 seconds. We have Rake the target for 562 bleed damage and an additional 2514 bleed damage over 15 seconds, reducing the target's movement speed by 20%. While Stealth, Rake will also stun the target for 4 seconds and deal 60% increased damage. So these 2 abilities have a big damage increase when you are Stealth. So when we are starting the rotation, we always start in Stealth. Ferocious Bite, finish move that causes physical damage per combo point and consumes up to 25% additional energy to increase damage by up to 100%. So what does this mean? It means that we have a finish move that deals in total 3106 damage, but if you have 50 energy, you will do up to 100% increased damage. So what would that mean? It would mean that if you have the extra 25 additional energy, you will do 100% increased damage, which will put this way higher up in damage. And that's kind of what we want to aim for every time when we use Ferocious Bite, that we are on these 50 energy before we are pulling off the Ferocious Bite. I have tested this, if it's just as good as just doing it under 15, but my test always showed that it was better to wait till you had around 50 energy before you used Ferocious Bite. The Rip here, finish move that causes bleed damage over time. Lasts longer per combo points. So at 5 combo points you do 24 seconds and do 5,700 over time. You have to think about when you play Feral Druid that the bleed on the target is always best. Bleeds, you wanna always remain Rip and Rake on your targets. Because of our mastery, as I pulled up before here, our mastery increases the damage done of our cat form bleed abilities by 45%. It does for me because I have so much mastery. It can vary from you, depends on how much mastery you have, but you always want to keep your bleed effects up. If you are pulling on a boss and you don't have your rip up, do what you can to get it up again. It's very important for you to have. Okay, so that was kind of our damage abilities. We also have Tiger's Fury, which we have talked about. It have a 30 seconds cooldown. It instantly restores 50 energy and increases the damage of all of your attacks by 15% for their full duration, last 15 seconds. What the full rotation means is that if you have used Tiger's Fury and you have the 50% increased damage up, when you're using Rip, the Rip will do 15% increased damage for its full duration. It's up, which means if you keep using Ferocious Bite and keeping adding to the duration of Rip, the 50% increased damage will still apply to this Rip. And also with Rake, if you have the Tiger's Fury's damage increase up, it will do more damage, and the Thresh also. Then we have our Covenant Spirit. Convoke the Spirit ability from the Covenant Night Fae. We have Berserk, which is very powerful. Go Berserk for 20 seconds, causes Rake and Shred to deal damage as though they were stealthed. And we saw that before that Shred and Rake have a 60% increased damage when they are stealth. So when you are Berserk on, you will do more damage in Shred and Rake, which is very good. But what is also very, very good is that it gives you finish move a 20% chance per combo point spent to refund 2 combo points. So that is very powerful. The cooldown. And that is basically those we're gonna keep into with our rotation here. It's our damage abilities we're going to use. We're gonna wait off with the Moon King form, and the Heart of the Wild, I won't put this into this beginner's guide. I will put it in the experience guide. So if you want to see that rotation, you should wait until we get to the experience guide rotation. Okay, so I'll just complete display how I want to use these abilities. It depends if you're on a raid boss. It depends on how long the fight is. If the fight is exactly 4 minutes, you can see that you kind of want to pop the cooldown at the beginning of the fight, and depends on how long the fight goes. It depends which one I want to use. Normally I always want to use Berserk before I use Convoke. It's our 2 cooldown abilities, and the reasoning for this is that if I play a 4 minutes long fight, if I take too long to use this, I end up only being able to use it once. And the Convoke Spirit have a 2 minute cooldown, so I can wait longer time and still get 2 charges of this. A lot of fight actually in Kastnefner, if you are in normal mode, it takes around 4 minutes. So it varies from what boss you are on. But Saya and the last boss takes longer, but a lot of the boss fights takes around 4 minutes. So it's kind of nice to know if you take too long to use Berserk, you will only be able to use it once. So normally I just start out using Berserk, and then when we get later into it, play Convoke the Spirit. So, okay, so let's go here. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm starting off just popping my Berserk, using Rake, using Brutal Slash, using Thresh, and then I use Tiger's Fury to get the energy value out of Tiger's Fury. You always want to keep trying to get the 50% increase restored energy from Tiger's Fury, because it won't be as good if you don't get that. Okay, let's go here. So what I'm doing is I'm putting Berserk here, I'm putting Rake, Brutal Slash, Thresh, we're taking Tiger's Fury, and now we do Brutal Slash again, we do Rip here, popping in here, popping up there, bam, bam. You get a lot of combo points here, you see. So keeping up leads up for all cost, 50% up there, boom, bam. And you see the increased duration we get from the rip right here, right? Up there, boom. And we applying rip here again, boom. And now we are putting up the Convoke the Spirit here, doing a lot of damage here, and that's kind of the core rotation you do, and just keep adding into this. What you see here when I'm playing here is when I get my clear cast up here, I always want to use it on even Thresh or my Shred, because it costs the most energy for me to use. You never want to go with a clear cast on your Brutal Slash. It does the most damage, but it only costs 25 energy to use. And your Shred costs 40 energy, though it's a worse damage output for you. Thresh also costs 40, so it's those two you want to do if you want to use your clear cast. If you use your clear cast on your Brutal Slash, it would just feel bad. It's not good at any cost here. You see him, one of the problems is now I don't have this up. It's so important, yet I keep it up all the time. You saw here I actually used my rip before I used my Tiger's Fury. I shouldn't have done that. I should wait it until I could apply my Tiger's Fury and then use the rip for the 15% increased damage. Okay, so that's pretty much, now you're here in the zone where you're just low on energy, and then the rotation goes way slower. As more energy you have, the rotation will just go way faster. Here you saw, before I used Ferocious Bite, I waited till I have the 50% energy. I didn't have it, so I used my Tiger's Fury to get the 50% increase, and also just getting my energy up to be able to do it. Here, my down here, boom, boom, and that's kind of the rotation, right? So on, so on, so on. When your cooldown is up again, you're using them, Convoke the Spirit, your Berserk, these kind of things, when they're up, use them. It's important. Boom. So that's pretty much it. It's pretty simple. I tested if it was worth to actually thrash or just rather do shred. My testing was that it is always better to use shred. Now thrash, I'm sorry, and keeping it up. And one of the reasons is that overall, if you don't crit a lot with your shred, thrash do overall generally more damage. It's not much, they're close to each other, but it's best to keep it up. So I always keep it up if I can. If I just stop here, get here. Yes, what was it I want to check? Boom, 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 boom. Yeah. Taste of Blood. When we're looking at our soul bites, you have this Ferocious Bite deals 2.6% increased damage for each of your bleed on the target. That's a very good potency conducts to use, and that's also a good idea to use your Thresh, because it gives you 2.6% more damage with your Ferocious Bite. So try to keep as most bleeds up on the target as you can. It also get benefits from your mastery, so it is very good to use. Always value Thresh. Don't just see it as an AoE ability, it's also for single target. So those kind of the core rotation. It's not that difficult to do, pretty simple, but I hope it helps you, and yeah, that was pretty much it. Yes, so we have just been over the beginning guide, and now we're going into the more experienced guide. So here we are sitting with people that are experienced, they know their spec, they know their class, they have played Flavel Druid, and they are not afraid of playing it to its fulfillment. If you are, yeah, let's just jump into it. Let's not talk so much about it, let's just do it. So before, in the beginning guide, we talked about that when you are doing single target damage on a minion, you kinda wanna go here in the first row, all the down here to Brutal Slash. It's pretty much the same. The only difference is from the beginner to the more experienced is those two talents. Moment Clarity for beginners, it doesn't do as good damage as Blood Tailor, but it is way easier to handle. But we are experienced people, so we want to do Blood Tailor for the maximum value here. We are thinking about how can we do the most damage as possible. Okay, so Sabertooth, you know why we're picking that, right? Rattata, Tiger Dash, you can decide which one you want to pick. I like Wild Charge. Some circumstances, Artificer. No, Tiger Dash can be good, simple against Artificer. We pick Wild Charge. Balance, we pick this because we need to pick this for the most damage because we like the range of all our abilities increased to 3 yards, and we're gonna use the Moonkin form. We're gonna for our rotation. When we pop Moonkin form, the only two abilities we are gonna use is Sunfire and Star Search. I'll just go into the abilities here, how it. I'll just go here into my Moonkin form and see them. So I just put those two up. I have the other ones if necessary. Sometimes when I'm playing against Sire, we had so bad range damage on the ads on the platforms, so I actually went range and actually did damage with my range pack here. But what we are going to do in our rotation, we're only going to use Sunfire, and when we pop a Heart of the Wild, we also use a Star Search because it gives us an instant cast with Star Search. If it's not instant, you don't want to use Star Search. We're only applying Sunfire when Heart of the Wild is not up. Okay, so that is why we pick this Heart of the Wild, because we want increased damage from our balance abilities by 30%. None of those give us extra damage. None of those gives us extra damage. We want extra damage. That's why we pick Heart of the Wild. It buffs our abilities greatly. Also, before people can maybe think about, hey, why are you going Moonkin form? Can it really pay off to go into this? And I tested this to see we're only gonna use a Moonkin form when we have downtime. A lot of the times we don't have enough energy to use our abilities properly. So often we're just gonna wait, and in that wait time we can go into Moonkin form and do some damage in abilities. And is that change better than the auto attacks we get from our Feral Cat abilities? And yes, it is. When you actually look at this ability, the Sunfire, it burns the enemy for 316 nature damage, and then an additional 1730 nature damage over 12 seconds to the primary target and all enemies within it. When you think about that, it's actually a lot. Doing around a little over 2k just for a Sunfire that takes 12 seconds, that is actually pretty good. If you look at just the Thresh here, your Thresh here, it doesn't do nearly as much. Your Thread doesn't even do that damage, and you don't have the energy, so you can't even play these abilities. When we go into this, we're using our mana, so we have a lot of time to actually use some abilities that doesn't damage. When you use the Star Search, sometimes it actually comes in with an instant cast and a 30% increase. It hits for 7k, so that's actually a lot for a Star Search to hit that high. So back to our ability here. Yeah, so it can pay off to go into Moonkin form and play the Sunfire. You also need to figure out that while you are in Moonkin form, you still do an auto attack damage. Actually, if you look at it, I'm just hitting here. I don't hit as often as my favorite druid, but I actually do damage, and when you play this on, it's definitely worth it to do. Okay, so next one is our Brutal Slash. You know that. The other two is only for AoE. We want to do single target, so we're going with Brutal Slash. And Blood Tailor, it does the most damage compared to Moment of Clarity. Feral Frenzy, yeah, it doesn't do as much damage as Blood Tailor. It doesn't feel that great, I have to be honest, when I play it. It's actually not that big of a damage increase, but it still is it is a damage increase to use Blood Tailor, and it's way better to have Blood Tailor active. So we are gonna use that for sure to play our spec probably and doing the most damage. Put the Blood Tailor into this. And before, in our beginner guide, we talked about covenants. We're not gonna do that here. So when you have the spec here, we're just going into the rotation, right? Yes. Okay, so let's go into the rotation we're going to do. And yeah, let's just go into it and we can talk about it later, right? So let's go. We are going into, let's go, yeah. We're going into Rake, we're going to do Berserk, we're going to do Dep, popping our Tiger Sphere to get the 15% increase here. We're going to pop this, and we're only going to use Convoke the Spirit when we have Berserk off. It's going off in 1 second, and we can use a pop our cooldowns here, and now we're using Convoke the Spirit. When we're using Convoke Spirit, is this now beginning to get the time to go into our Boomkin form. When we have downtime here, I'm going in here now. Boom, playing this. We use the Heart of the Wild, so that's it. And you see here now our is up again here. I'm gonna use this, keeping our bleeds up, guys. Boom. Downtime. Kind of want to aim for getting 2 stars, 3 star searches then. I'm gonna try keep doing that. Our bleeds up again. And now we got Moonkin form again. Boom. Star Search. We did it 3 times now. Is it a problem? Let's do it. We'll probably not get the 4th in here. It's normally not something you're gonna do here. Yeah, but always when you clear cast, do it on the thread. Now Moonkin form again. Pop it there. Boom. Boom. Keeping bleeds up. Boom, downtime again. Doesn't matter if you just save it up again, it's fine. And see, there's actually a lot of the times where I'm actually even going to go into Moon. You see my Tiger Sphere is coming up now. I'm not going into Moonkin form. We want to use Tiger Fury as it comes up. And then we can go in again just before our rip goes up. We will be able to just apply it. Reapply it here, right? That's beautiful, beautiful timing of the so here, see, I can go into, I just wait until just one more, just to be sure I'm not covering up. Going again here, see here, clear casting, getting the texture up, buffing up here, boom. Bum up there, and that's kind of the rotation, right? Going into Moonkin form again, and when you get it down, it's actually not that hard. Of course, it's so easy to make mistakes in this. You're probably gonna do mistakes. Okay, I still do mistakes in my rotation. I probably did a little here, not too crucial. It's very hard to do it perfectly, like no mistakes. Be not too hard on yourself and be gentle. It's pretty there's a lot of classes that have it way easier with their spec, right? I also have my cooldowns up again, but I kind of don't want to use them. I just wanted to show the core rotation here with the Moonkin form change here in here, yeah, right? Boom. So you're probably gonna get around 3 star chases in. I actually saw that I probably, if it was timed right, was able maybe to get a 4th in, but most of the times you're only gonna get 3 in, because please do not go into Moonking form if you have your Tiger's Fury up. If you are able to get your energy, you always want to use your energy. No question asked about it, okay? Okay, that's it. I toned it a little down here before. I should probably have walked out before this, because then I would probably have been on a higher damage per second, because I kind of didn't use my Convoke the Spirit and Berserk second time. But you're gonna be around unbuffed here with my gear at 2-3. You're probably gonna be around 3-5 to 4k damage on this candlestick target. And if you just can go in, I may be able to show you what I did today. Okay, there we have a little of the damage I put. I did Castle Nethria normal. Is it possible to okay, I don't have all the boss fights apparently, but I can go back to Hunter Destroyer here. Please tell me I can do that. Yeah, great. Okay, so we are on Hungry Destroy here. We did 3.9k. I did this rotation. I did these boss fights. This guy here, he was really geared. I think he was on 225 item level, so it's way above me. So he did a lot more damage than me. 3.9 at the Hungry Destroyer. It also depends on how much you're gonna get hit by stuff. I got oftentimes something on, but yeah, it's fine. Dark Lady, we did 4.3k. He was just topping it all the time. It was pretty cool. But you see at the damage meter, you're pretty looking pretty good actually in the damage here. You're not in the low end, and it's kind of helping with your Moon King rotation. And here we have 4.4k. I think that's quite good for my 2-3 item level, I would say. I didn't have the other one. I would really love to have seen the other ones. I probably can't go back there, but that's just to show you how the damage output kind of gonna look when you're doing these normal dungeons. So yeah, we were at item level with this balanced druid here, and you can see he does way less damage than us. And balanced wise, with the classes, balance is better than feral in damage output, but we actually did pretty good here. Sunken Salvation I'm not gonna show you because we were hybrid, so we were healing, actually using a lot of the time to help healing, so there's not much here to show. Side Nether, that's actually not that great damage output. We actually very low down. We are 2.9. The reasoning for that was that we had problem with our range doing the platforms, so I actually switched over to doing range damage, which took my damage down also in Moon King form. So sometimes you also do that, helping with platforms, because the range can't manage it. It's fine. Well, that was kind of my Feral Druid guide. I hope it helped you guys. And if you like to see more of my Feral Druid guides, you please give it a thumbs up or something like that to show me that people actually want to see this. It's my first video, and if people don't want to see it, please just dislike it if you don't want to see it, because then I know if it's something that people actually want. So thank you guys for listening, and I hope you're well, and have a nice day.